Welcome back to Cinema Corner. My name is Alex, and today I'll be reviewing Kung Fu Panda 4. It just came out back in March. I know it's a month later, but I figured I still want to get a video out on it. For context, I have seen the previous three films growing up. So even when the first one came out back in 2008, I was like 8 years old. So I definitely grew up with these films, just to give you that kind of perspective there of kind of where I'm coming from when I give my review of this movie. So as you can tell, it's just me today. The other two co-hosts have not watched it, and honestly, they might not after my review, but stranger things have happened. So let's just dive into this film. Of course, this is the fourth film in the franchise. Let me just dive into my positives of the film. Animation still is really, really good. DreamWorks usually does really well when it comes to their animation. That has not changed at all. The acting in the movie, great as always. Of course, you have Jack Black back as the title character, Kung Fu Panda, aka Po. He kills it once again. He is the Kung Fu Panda. He is what makes these films. But one of the things that I want to highlight in this film was Viola Davis. Both as a negative and a positive, if that makes sense. Her character as a whole, her backstory, while not the deepest in the franchise and definitely not the most impactful when it comes to their backstory, like say Tai Lung or Shen or even Kai, her powers are really, really cool. She can obviously, she's the chameleon, so she can shapeshift into different characters. Of course, just taking their appearance through pretty much majority of the film, and then after a certain point in the film, she gets the ability to actually take their abilities and learn their actual moves and their technique. And not only can she look like them, but she can actually fight like them too. Yeah, performance-wise, she did fantastic with what she had. Keyword with what she had, because this is definitely probably the most hollow of the four villains in the entire franchise, which is sad to say. But with what she was given, she was fantastic in it. It sounded like she was having the time of her life, and that's all you really want, for these actors to have the time of their lives. And Viola Davis was definitely having a blast. At least that's what it sounded like when she was recording for this character here. Then going into the main story here. So basically, in this film, Po is tasked with now selecting the new Dragon Warrior, passing on the title, and he will then become the master. He was very reluctant at first, pretty much, actually not at first, throughout the entire film. Actually, he's very reluctant to change. And I guess that is the big message of this film, is that at some point you have to accept change, and you can't be afraid to basically, take a step forward and know that change, while scary, sometimes it's needed. And obviously, from the marketing, you can tell that the supposed new Dragon Warrior that they're trying to set up here is the character Zen, played by Awkwafina. And let me just say, just to preface this, a lot of people, including probably Blake, he is not a fan of Awkwafina. I guess he finds her really, really annoying, and she can be. I'm not saying that she's not, but in this film, she was definitely toned down. She's the less Awkwafina-y of all of her characters that she's played, if that makes any sense. But still, as a whole story, does it stack up to the rest of them? No, it does not. So I guess I'll just get into my negatives, because boy, there are some negatives in this film. Big one right off the bat here, and of course this is spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, and I mean, this film has been out for at least a month, if not longer by now, so if you don't want to get spoiled, I would just maybe leave a like, click off the video, go watch it, and then come back. I believe by now it's already on digital, so if you want to watch it, you can watch it on on digital already. But that was my spoiler warning. With that said, in this film, actually not in this film, are the Furious Five. Nowhere to be found. As a matter of fact, you don't see them until the very end, and they're not even in, like, there's no one speaking, I believe. Maybe like they use some of the cut audio from previous films, but to my memory, not a single voice is heard from either of the five characters. No Angelina Jolie, no Jackie Chan, no Seth Rogen, no David Cross, no Lucy Liu, nothing. You don't hear anything from any of the Furious Five. So they are completely benched. They are sidelined in this film, and honestly, to the detriment of the film. Like I said before, I've watched this entire franchise. I practically grew up with them. I love Jack Black as Poe, and he, of course, carries the film, majority of the film. But what makes those original three so great is that he is great, but also he has a supporting cast with him. And this time around, he just didn't really have that. It was just him, and occasionally his two dads would come in, and they would provide some comedic relief. This whole movie is comedy, but it's their style of comedy that they bring with their dad jokes. But you don't get that dynamic between him and the Furious Five at all in this film, and that is sorely missed. At least in the last film, while they didn't get much screen time either, Poe had more screen time with Tigress, and this time around, he didn't have that at all. He obviously went on this journey with the new character Zen, played by Awkwafina, like I said, and their dynamic is cool. It works. It's fine, but of course, it's not as good as that dynamic that was there with Tigress or with Viper or with any of the Furious Five. And then, as a matter of fact, Master Shifu, he is in the film, and he is only in the film for brief moments here and there. He only really speaks with Poe at the beginning of the film and then towards the end of the film, and that's about it. Majority of the time, Poe is, conversing with other characters, with brand new characters. Obviously, they go to a different part of China in this film. And, Jack Black does amazing with what he was given, but, it just does not stack up to the original three. But we do get that nostalgic feel with a bunch of things that go on in this film. Of course, you have the one of the first villains of the franchise, of course, Tai Lung, played by Ian McShane. He comes back, he actually voices the character, and he actually speaks to Poe. And you see that dynamic and how that's grown since obviously their first confrontation in the very first film. And it's a very different conversation than how it went before. Obviously, they fought in the first one. This one they don't fight at all. At least not the real Tai Lung against Poe. So that dynamic is different. And then you get obviously callbacks to some of the jokes that that have been running through the entire franchise, with the vase of whispering voices, whatever it's called. Obviously, that gets broken every film, and it's pretty much at this point it's just it's a bunch of glass just taped up together, and it is pretty funny here and there. Some of the jokes land, some of the jokes do not, of course. One of the things that I wish they would do, but I know they won't, is because these films are targeted towards obviously younger audiences, which I'm no longer a part of that audience, but at one point I was. And what I would wish that they would do is target towards that audience that grew up with these films. But they will never do that. And that kind of sucks. Not saying that there aren't any adult jokes that are hidden in there that only the adults would catch when viewing this film. But, I just wish that there was more of that. I want to see these films grow up along with me. But that's just a personal preference. In terms of what it is and who it's made for, I'm sure this hits perfectly fine with the younger audience. As a matter of fact, I think this might be one of the highest rated audience scores in the entire franchise. Now, when it comes to their critic score, boy, oh boy, it's the worst one by far. The previous worst one was at I believe an 82, and that was Kung Fu Panda 2, and the other two were at 86 or in 87 or something along those lines. This one is at a fat 72, and yeah, it didn't even crack 80%, which is kind of crazy to think about. But you know, I'm sure they probably thought the same thing. Some of the pacing is a little, you know, at certain points can drag on, and at other points it's like really really quick, and we get through these explanations really fast. But you know, as a whole, I would say this: if you're a fan of this franchise, and you just want to go back into this world, sit down and just lose your brain and just, you know, have a laugh here and there, I would say go for it. Watch this film. You know, it's not that long. Of course, most animated films are not that long. This one, not any different. But if you're a fan of this franchise and don't want to get that sour taste in your mouth where you're like, man, what happened? Because the first three are so good. And this film, like I said, the animation's still great and probably looks the best of the three, obviously. With time, the animation has gotten better, but the story, the plot definitely is not on par with the previous three films. And if you're afraid that this is going to tarnish your view of the franchise as a whole, I would honestly say you can go without watching this film. I don't see that many implications going forward. Of course, I'm not even sure that we're getting a fifth film. If they are getting a fifth film and they continue with this, with what they were trying to set up towards the end of the film, then maybe if you're such a diehard fan, you may end up having to watch it. But I mean, other than that, I would say you can probably skip this film. So, with that said, my ratings for this film, and just to give you a general idea, of course, this is just off the top of my head. The first three films, I have them ranked from 1, 2, and 3 in that exact order, and I have them pretty high up there, like at least like a 9.2, a 9, and like an 8.9, kind of like in that range. Those are where the first three land for me, and this one nowhere close to that, unfortunately. This one is at like a 6.8. So, you know, sad to say, I was genuinely wanting to go into this film trying to get another, you know, Kung Fu Panda hit, and at some points it did. You know, don't get me wrong, this film is not terrible all around. It's just it doesn't stack up to that original three, and that's just my personal opinion on that. It's not the worst thing in the world. I've seen worse, trust me. But anyways, with that said, if you guys liked the video, comment down below, let me know. If you guys have already watched the film, how does it stack up to you in terms of the now as the 4 films? How do your rankings go? Let me know down below. So with that said, if you guys liked the video, smash the like button as it shows the support, and we would really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys in the next one.